Stocks eke out some gains with utilities and FMCG leading the charge, while healthcare and metals lag. The mid-caps underperformed today. The government cuts windfall taxes on crude oil, diesel and aviation turbine fuel, while the levy on petrol stays at nil. The move buoys sentiment for oil producers and refiners. Hindustan Aeronautics tells CNBC-TV18 that it's looking at a big swell of orders in the next 6 months, while Sula Vineyards is upbeat on its big crop for the next season. And PwC's CEO survey shows 73% see growth declining over the next 12 months, but Indian honchos are more upbeat. Tata Steel's TV Narendran is optimistic on China reopening. Bajaj Finance's Sanjeev Bajaj thinks the worst is behind, even as noted economist Kenneth Rogoff sees China's reshaping as a big opportunity for India. Hi guys, good afternoon and welcome to Business Lunch. I'm Pavitra Parekh. Those are all of the top headlines that we're looking at this afternoon. But before we start with anything, let's quickly take a look at what's going on with the market action. We've once again for all of this morning been trading in that range. So currently we have seen a little bit more of a dip that's come through, like you can see on your screen, and we've given up quite a bit from the high point of the day, around 50 points from the highs of the day. We had crossed that 18,000 mark as well, but currently at 17,963 on the Nifty. The mid-cap index is where you're seeing a lot of the pain come through today. That index is around 0.5% in the green, so do keep your eye out on that one. And the Nifty Bank is also suffering quite a cut right now. It's around 170 points lower on the Nifty Bank. So we're going to talk, in fact, the PSU Bank index will come up for you. Take a look at how that has moved. It's currently over 2% in the red. You have a lot of these bank earnings which have been coming through, and some of the smaller ones have seen quite a cut after those came out. So do keep your eye out on that. More from the financials, the Bajaj twins under pressure once more. And you have the likes of SBI, IndusInd, which are seeing pretty big cuts. What's doing well, however, today is the FMCG pack. So the consumption basket is doing well. HUL, Marico, Nestle, a few of those names will be up for you. That's what's really supporting the market. And tech continues to rally. So something like an HCL Tech, by the way, for this month alone, it's up over 7%. The rest of the IT names also, like you can see on your screen, holding up quite well. So that's what's going on with the market action. We will come back to this. But first up, let's talk about some individual names which are doing very well. Sula Vineyards is the first stock on our radar. The stock saw a big move yesterday after it posted their Q3 business update. And in fact, even today, it is rallying after that business update. We, in fact, spoke with Rajiv Samant, who's MD and CEO of Sula, who laid out the company's growth strategy going forward. And he's actually sounding very optimistic. So let's listen into that.
So I think already we've seen significant growth, as you've pointed up, 70% gross margin. At this point, I must say that it's not necessarily a priority, the top priority for the company to improve it further, because at 70% gross margin, we're throwing out cash. We're in a very comfortable position. We now want to plow that cash back into growing the business, into penetrating wine into tier 2 cities. Until now, wine has been very much a metro game, a few tier 1 cities. We want to take this magical liquid, what we call it, out to tier 2 India, and we want to spend money in penetrating that market for growth to come 2 or 3 years down the head. I think I'm very comfortable with a 70% gross margin at this point. So, in the last couple of years, our premium category, I would say 700 rupees and above, and especially 1,000 rupees and above, has grown much faster than the more popular wines. Having said that, Q3 saw strong growth across categories. I should point out that our cheapest wine in Mumbai is as low as 260 rupees. Our most expensive own brand wine is just a shade under 2,000 rupees. We saw strong growth across that. But from a management point of view, we are very focused on wines above 700 rupees and especially above 1,000 rupees. We are by far and ahead the market leaders there.
All right, that is the management of Sula Vineyards. By the way, Nugent Software's numbers flashing on your screen. Net profit is up almost 60%. If you look at it on a quarter-on-quarter basis, the EBITDA is also up around 56%. The EBITDA margin has seen a huge expansion this time. It's come in at over 20%. I think 23% is what I read on the EBITDA margin. The stock has also suddenly spiked up, like you can see. In fact, for the past 5 days, the Newgen software stock has been doing very well. So just for 5 days, the stock has seen an 11% rally. Right now, it's currently, around 0.5%. It's fallen off after seeing that sharp spike immediately after its earnings. So do keep your eye out on this one. But the other stock that we are tracking is Hindustan Aeronautics. This one is on our radar as the government increasingly looks to domestic companies in order to fulfill requirements of the armed forces. This is something we've been talking about, the big indigenization push for defense. So earlier today, we spoke with CB Ananth Krishnan, who's chairman and managing director at HAL, to get an outlook on the domestic order pipeline and also how the execution could really look and what is the timeline there. So let's listen in to what he had to tell us.
As of now, the order book is standing at a healthy around 84,000 crores, and we expect another 6,000 crores from the STT-40, for which the order has already been concluded. Only the documentation part is pending. The inquiries have increased. The leads which are coming from the other countries have also increased. There are a lot of countries which are now showing interest on HAL product. As far as the Argentina is concerned, we are in discussions with them for the helicopters. We expect that orders should come through.
Okay, that is the management of HAL talking about their orders. But let's move on and talk about another important story. The Reserve Bank of India has issued a discussion paper that seeks to move banks towards an expected loss approach with respect to bad loans. So what does this really mean for listed players? Ritu joins us to explain all of this to us. Ritu?
Well, there is a new approach for provisioning by banks which is in the works, and that is going to align the Indian banks with global standards. NBFCs, as you know, have already moved to the expected loss model, and now RBI has floated a discussion paper on the same for banks. So currently, banks follow what is an incurred loss model where they make provisions only once repayments are delayed or not paid. But now RBI proposes that banks start providing as soon as they start expecting any kind of loss or non-repayment. Now, under this expected credit loss model, banks have to classify loans into 3 categories. Stage 1 will mostly be all standard assets. Stage 2 will be loans that are seeing some signs of potential stress. And Stage 3 will broadly be loans which are in default. Banks can design and implement their own models to assess how much they need to provide for each of these stages. But there is going to be a floor which is set by the RBI in terms of minimum provisions they'll have to make. These models will also have to be independently verified, and disclosures will have to be made by banks. Now, as far as the transition is concerned, comments are invited by the 28th of Feb, and then RBI will come out with final guidelines. But the impact will not be immediate because banks will get at least 1 year for implementation and a maximum period of 5 years to phase out the higher provisioning to avoid any capital shock. RBI, in its own words, expects the potential initial impact of this to be significant, and broadly the census provisions will rise. CLSA, for instance, expects a limited impact on private banks, but public banks, it says, will have to build their buffers. Macquarie believes the provisions could be high because the probability of default has been very high in the last 5 to 10 years. The impact will be felt starting FY26 for banks. Morgan Stanley believes the potential impact is going to be manageable with larger private banks better placed than others, and Jefferies also holds a similar view.
All right, Ritu, thanks a lot for getting us all of those details. By the way, a quick look at the market once again. We've seen quite a slip come through. So right now we're just around 60 points in the green. It is 17,950 that we do have on the Nifty. It's only a 0.3% gain that we are, holding on with. So there's been quite a slip from the high point of the day, and the mid-cap index continues to suffer. So that one has also slipped even more, and we're right now seeing a cut of around 0.6%. One stock that has really been doing well is L&T, and it's right now at the high point of the day. It's moved over 3.5% to the green. But Ritu is still with us. Ritu, another important story, the fiscal health of states has vastly improved, with gross fiscal deficit falling from 4.1% to 3.4%. This is over the past 3 years. This is all according to RBI's annual state finances report. Ritu, take us through the highlights here as well.
That's right. The fiscal health of states is on the mend, according to RBI's latest state finances report, with gross fiscal deficit budgeted to decline to 4.1% of the GDP, in FY21 to 3.4% in the current fiscal. Now, this report says that improvement from the pandemic-induced deterioration that we saw in FY21 is now happening broadly on the back of broad-based economic recovery, and therefore the resultant high revenue collections by states. But it does find that the state's debt is budgeted to ease to about 29.5% of the GDP in FY23 against 31.1% in FY21, but it is still higher than the 20% recommended by the FRBM committee. And so RBI says debt consolidation needs needs to be a priority. Now, while states have budgeted a higher capital outlay for the current year than the last 3 years, RBI believes that going forward, there should be increased allocation for sectors like health, education, infrastructure, green energy transition, which can help expand the productive capacities if states mainstream this capital planning rather than treating them as residues and first stops for cutbacks to meet their budgetary targets.
All right, Ritu, thanks a lot for filling us in with the details on both of these stories. But with that, it's time for our first short break on the show. When we come back, we're going to bring you all of the exciting updates coming out from second day of the World Economic Forum, which is underway in Davos.
When timeless European design meets cutting-edge technology, it's QO. QO, European Bath Lounges.
To make my vision a reality, I have to see clearly from every point of view. With my Verilux progressive lenses, I seamlessly transition from near to far and see every detail in sharp focus. When you see no limits, there are no limits. Verilux lenses by Essilor.
ठंडी चाय हमारे पास बादाम है, किशमिश है, काजू है, अखरोट है। तुम्हारे पास क्या है? मेरे पास सेलो है, गर्मा गर्म चाय।
सेलो वैक्यूम स्टील की थर्मोसील टेक्नोलॉजी रखे गर्म को गर्म और ठंडे को ठंडा 24 घंटे। सेलो वैक्यूम स्टील फ्लास्क।
For how long will you continue being tensed about the future? Pension can free you from future's tension. With LIC's new Pension Plus, make your own pension plan because this plan creates market-linked wealth for your future. Moreover, this plan comes with guaranteed additions and also offers various options for receiving pension so that you grow young and tension-free. LIC, हर पल आपके साथ।
नए भारत का नया उत्तर प्रदेश, एक्सप्रेस प्रदेश, उत्तर प्रदेश। देश में विशाल एक्सप्रेसवे नेटवर्क वाला राज्य, 5 अंतर्राष्ट्रीय एयरपोर्ट, नेक्स्ट जनरेशन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, डिफेंस इंडस्ट्रियल कॉरिडोर और पर्यटन में असीम अवसरों वाले सबसे बड़े बाजार। उत्तर प्रदेश में 10 से 12 फरवरी को आयोजित ग्लोबल इन्वेस्टर समिट 2023 में आपका स्वागत है। आइए ट्रिपल-T यानी ट्रेड, टेक्नोलॉजी और टूरिज्म में अपार संभावनाओं वाले नए भारत के ग्रोथ इंजन उत्तर प्रदेश में निवेश करें।
Papa, we should make some copies of our house keys.
Okay.
We'll keep one at the grocery store, then one at the railway station, one outside in the garden, and yeah, one under the doormat.
Are you feeling all right? Inviting thieves to rob the house?
That's exactly what you're doing.
What?
What is this?
My trading account, Papa.
Password or an invitation to wipe out your account. Papa, password secure, asset secure.
You haven't read it, no?
I've memorized it also.
You will forget. Write it down somewhere.
Papa.
सोच कर, समझ कर, इन्वेस्ट कर।
Welcome back. You're still tuned into Business Lunch on CNBC-TV18, and as world business and policy leaders gather in Davos amid multiple headwinds for the global economy, top Indian CEOs are exuding confidence about the India story. So Tata Steel's TV Narendran is bullish on India's prospects as an exporter of steel. M&M says they are in the process of doubling their production capacity as economic prospects improve, while SBI Chairman Dinesh Khara believes that India will soon get over the inflation problem. So let's listen in to highlights of all of their comments.
And there's no reason why India shouldn't be a big exporter of steel. You know, India has the raw materials, and why should Japan, China, and Korea be exporting steel? when they don't have the iron ore and we have the raw material, and we should be exporting steel, creating jobs. The second part is, yes, when I look at our customer segments, if you look at automotive, they are back to where they were 4 years back. If you look at construction, it's quite strong. Industrial buildings, a lot of investments going on in supply chains, warehousing, a lot of investments in oil and gas. So all that will trigger private sector investment. So I think we are probably 6 months to 1 year away from getting private sector investment back.
Growth is coming from literally all areas. Automotive is going great guns. We've got some fantastic products with very long wait times, which we don't like, but that's driven by huge demand, far more than we've expected, that we've seen. As an example, we sold 100,000 cars in 30 minutes in our last launch, which is $2.3 billion worth. We are in process of doubling our capacity for auto, even in the face of a potential recession, because we do feel that with the level of demand, it's something that we need to do at this point.
Inflation has already started coming down in the country. And as far as the agrarian economy is concerned, we are observing that there is a definite change in the trend. Thanks to the science, we are in a position to guide our farmers what is the likely impact of the rains, and then in a position to go for the long duration crops. This has helped us in terms of ensuring that the food grain supply should not get affected at all. Apart from that, when it comes to the supply side constraints, they have been addressed to a greater extent, and that is one of the reasons why the inflation print which came recently as far as the consumer price inflation is concerned, it has come down to the level of 5.7. So the way it's moving, we are quite hopeful that we should be patient to get over the menace of inflation soon.
All right, that's encouraging to hear, right? All of the heads of India being still extremely optimistic on the India story and very, very positive on the outlook as far as their own companies as well as the sectors go for all of them. But with that, let's move on and bring you another important story that we're tracking. The world's most populous country, that's China, witnessed a drop in its population for the first time in over 60 years. So last year, mainland China's population declined by roughly 850,000. China also witnessed its highest death rate since 1947, with 7.37 deaths per 1,000 people, while births came in lower at 6.77 per 1,000 people. In fact, UN officials have suggested that China's population will shrink by 109 million. This is by 2050. And interestingly, this also comes after predictions of India becoming the most populous country in the world in this year. And as the population drops in China, economists have quite diverging views on whether China can really recover to once again become the driver of global growth. So let's listen in to some of those comments.
China surprisingly decided COVID zero, maybe we're getting rid of it, and short term that may lead to a boost to global growth. But I think underlying it's still very difficult, still continuing war in Ukraine and Russia, rising global interest rates, or at least high global interest rates because of inflation. I mentioned geopolitics. And I think China, although in the near term it may do well, everybody's been locked up and they want to go spend money. But I think longer term, China has a lot of problems.
China's the world's second largest economy. It's just completely reset its own policy dials. In the environment that we're anticipating, it'll probably drive as much as 50% of all global growth, having driven probably only around 5% of global growth last year. That's big enough to actually generate a meaningful upside revenue surprise for Europe, which has a lot of revenue sensitivity. And again, that's one of the reasons the European market is outperforming the US. So China's quite big enough to change the whole global environment. There's at least another 10% plus upside to our current base case target for EM. And EM is outperforming DM in aggregate for the first time in a long time.
All right, that is some important opinion on how the China story could play out. But with that, we are going to get into a short break. On the other side, as the union budget draws closer, what is the diamond industry's wish list from this annual exercise? We're going to tell you when we come back.
Volkswagen Tiguan, India's safest SUVW.
Volkswagen. India Bulls Commercial Credit Limited announces a public issue of secured redeemable NCDs, offering coupon rate of up to 10.30% per annum and additional incentive of 0.25% per annum. Tranche 1 issue is open for subscription. To subscribe, log on to www.indiabullscommercialcredit.com. For risk factors, detailed disclaimer and more details, refer to Tranche 1 prospectus available on the websites of SEBI, Stock Exchange, Company and the lead managers.
उत्तरवीर कमाल दिखा अपना, कभी टेबल बन जाता है तो कभी अलमारी। वीर MDF आम प्लाईवुड से ज्यादा मजबूत, ज्यादा किफायती, दिखे चकाचक, टिके टकाटक।
Friends, I want to share some good news with all of you. Firstly, like always, we have performed very well this time also.
But what will we get?
Secondly, we shall invest in employee benefit.
Come on, now tell us what will we get?
And thirdly, we shall invest in LIC's group funded plans.
Great, we'll get everything.
Now, leave encashment, gratuity, and along with pension, our future is secure.
Yes, employees' real benefit lies in LIC pension and group scheme.
Oi, even if expensive, it's high time you buy a new phone. Else he will show off his 50 MB phone features 100 times. Sell the car or break the piggy bank jar. Borrow money from mom. Else start part-time samosa thela yaar. Chill bro, you already have Bob World. Go to Bob World and get personal loan.
We listen to your inner voice because we live in your world.
आग को फैलने से रोकना मुश्किल है पर नामुमकिन नहीं। अब फायरवॉल टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ सेंचुरी प्लाइड क्लब प्राइम आग से बचाए।
गुरुजी ये 3S क्या है? 3S म्यूचुअल फंड की फैसिलिटीज हैं। किश्तों में इन्वेस्टमेंट करने के लिए सिस्टमैटिक इन्वेस्टमेट प्लान।
बेटर रिस्क मैनेजमेंट के लिए एक फंड से दूसरे फंड में ट्रांसफर करो। सिस्टमैटिक ट्रांसफर प्लान के साथ।
और रिटायरमेंट के बाद की जरूरतों के लिए सिस्टमैटिक विड्रॉल प्लान।
क्या बात है। किसी भी म्यूचुअल फंड स्कीम को करो स्ट्रॉन्ग 3S फैसिलिटीज के साथ। म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। स्कीम संबंधी सभी दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें।
Welcome back. You're still tuned into Business Lunch, and some news that you should take note of. Freight rates for cement in Himachal Pradesh are around 2.5 to 3 times higher than what we see in other states, and this has led to cement units in the state, like the two owned by the Adani Group, turning unviable and costing the state economy around 200 crore rupees per day. Now, the standoff is hurting not just the near 3,000 employees at these units, but also thousands of others who are part of the ecosystem. Now, what's more is that some acts of violence by unionists have further complicated the plot. So this is something that, you should really keep a close eye on. We'll also watch these developments closely and keep bringing you updates. But this is likely to have some important implications for the cement sector, and that is why we're bringing you up to speed with this story. But something more, like we told you, the budget is just around the corner, and over 90% of the world's diamonds are cut and polished in Surat, Gujarat. But repercussions out of the Russia-Ukraine war, as well as China's COVID situation, has wiped out nearly 35% of the global demand, which has also, of course, led to widespread layoffs across the industry. So Shilpa reports from Surat that in a state, without government support and friendly export policies, India's diamond city may really lose its sheen. So let's take a look at this special report.
Twenty-seven-year-old Premal Sakaria has been cutting and polishing diamonds for nearly 10 years across various companies in Surat. But that came to a grinding halt post-Diwali when the company he'd been working at for the past 2 years suddenly shut down, leaving him and nearly 200 others jobless. A plunge in global demand for diamonds has forced several of the 7,000 plus diamond units in Surat to either lay off staff or shut operations.
दीपावली के बाद उन्होंने निकल दिया और मेरे साथ कई सारे लोगों को निकल दिया है। कम से कम तकरीबन 100 से 125 150 वर्कर थे, उन सबको निकल दिया। और कहीं ना कहीं लोग जॉब ढूंढ रहे हैं, लेकिन किसी को मिलती नहीं। अगर किसी को मिल भी जाती तो बहुत 5 या 10 हज़ार की जॉब मिलती है, उसमें कुछ होता ही नहीं।
The Diamond Workers Union claims that since Diwali, at least 20,000 workers have been laid off across Surat's $40 billion diamond industry. However, diamond merchants say that the extent of job losses is exaggerated and that most companies have been cutting down working hours and not laying off people.
मेरा ऐसा मानना है कि कई कतारगांव में एक कंपनी थी, नाम उसका मैं अब नहीं बता सकता प्राइवेसी के बारे में, तो वो 700 वर्कर्स से 6 महीनों में ही बंद हो गई। ऐसी छोटी बड़ी कंपनियां 2-3 अभी बंद हुई है, लेकिन हमारे पास जो कंप्लेंट्स आती है उस कंप्लेंट्स की बात करें तो रोज़ाना 2 से 3 कंप्लेंट्स काम पर से निकाल देने की आती है।
ये बात तद्दन गलत है। किसी को वर्कर को अभी जॉब से छुट्टी नहीं दी गई है, लेकिन वर्कर को टाइम कंजप्शन कर रहे हैं। जो पहले 8 घंटे का कारोबार करा रहे थे वो 6 घंटे के कर रहे हैं।
Surat is the world's largest hub for diamonds, with every 14 out of 15 diamonds sold in the world being cut and polished in Surat. And 90% of this is exported, largely to the US and China. However, due to the Ukraine-Russia war causing a global economic downturn, followed by COVID lockdowns in China, has crippled the demand for this precious stone in the past 10 months.
जो पॉलिश होता है, पॉलिशिंग प्रोडक्शन उतना बिकता ही नहीं है। पहले समझो कि 100 हीरा बिक रहा था, तो अभी 60 हीरा ही बिक रहा है। ये सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है।
While global uncertainties continue, the industry believes government support will go a long way in helping Surat survive the tough environment. The Gem and Jewellery Export Promotion Council has asked the government to allow sale of rough diamonds through a special notified zone to facilitate trade between SMEs and diamond mining companies, and also allow diamond exporters to benefit from policies of major mining countries in Africa.
आज जो SME सेक्टर के छोटे छोटे लोग हैं वो अपनी ऑफिस फॉरेन में नहीं है, तो ई कॉमर्स के अंदर जो अभी सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट 2% इक्वलाइजेशन लेवी डाला है, वो कोई भी इंडियन कंपनी यहाँ से वो ई कॉमर्स के माध्यम से बिजनेस करेंगे तो 2% एक्स्ट्रा देना पड़ता है। हाई वैल्यू के अंदर 2% कहाँ जाके रुकेगा। गवर्नमेंट को 2 साल से हम रिक्वेस्ट करें कि भाई इसको आप हटाइए तो छोटे लोग कारोबार कर सकेंगे, बड़े लोगों के साथ कॉम्पीट नहीं कर पाएंगे।
Other demands also include a repair policy for jewellery and cashing in on the growing demand for lab-grown diamonds. The diamond industry in Surat is also asking the government to remove the 7.5% import duty on the raw material for lab-grown diamonds, demand for which has been growing. The industry is also pinning its hopes on this upcoming diamond bourse here in Surat, which they say will not only boost volumes but will also give smaller merchants access to global markets and potentially create over 50,000 jobs. In Surat, with camera person Ajay Dabolkar, Shilpa Rani Peta.
All right, that is the diamond sector's complete wish list out of the budget, which is just around 2 weeks away now. But on that note, we're going to wind down on this edition of Business Lunch with the news that the market is cutting its gains with just around 40 points in the green right now. So we've given up a significant bit from the day's high, and it is the mid-cap index and the financials which are bearing a brunt of this pain. But we're going to wind down now. You guys stay tuned. Mid-cap radar in just a bit.